Welcome back, everyone. So I was having a conversation with my eldest daughter the other night. She's in her early 30s, and we were talking about, boy, this is going to make me sound really old now. I was telling her how much better life was in the 1970s and the 1980s in particular. For me, the heyday of my generation, at least, was probably the 1980s, early 90s. Great time to be alive for many, many reasons. First of all, I think we were certainly much freer then. I mean, we could watch programmes like Only Fools and Horses without the now quite unbelievable warning before. I mean, if you go and watch, is it UK Gold or whatever it is, before they play episodes of Only Fools and Horses now, it's issued with a warning that some people might find this programme offensive. Really? Who could ever find Only Fools and Horses offensive unless you just had given up on life and wanted to die in complete misery? Who would never want to watch an episode of Minder and have to have a warning before that you watch it that some of the language might not be appropriate and it might be offensive to some people? I mean, where have we got to in the 21st century in 2024? And she was asking me why life was so much easier back then, and it was difficult to explain, really. I mean, look, I bought my first home when I think I was 19 when I bought my first house. 100% mortgage. It was made very simple for me. I made a lot of money on that property. Then I bought another one and another one. And, you know, before I was 30, I'd owned 5 or 6 properties. The kids of today, and when I say kids, I mean in their early 30s, they're no longer kids, right? Most of them can't afford to own their own homes. They can't get a mortgage. They can't show enough earnings for whatever reason. It's okay for them to pay $1,500, $2,000 a month rent. That's fine. They can do that. But the banks won't allow them to pay £800 a month mortgage for the same property. Bit of a contradiction in terms here, really, isn't it? If you can afford the rent, why can't you afford the mortgage? Well, all because this government and the governments before them are all trying to keep us well and truly in and under their control. Look, I'm not a politician, I'm not a financial expert or an economist, but I recognise people being downtrodden when I see it. I recognise our elderly now being almost made to feel guilty for living so long because they can't use the internet. You know, they want a doctor's appointment, it's got to be done online, when half of them don't even know how to go online, let alone have a smartphone to be able to use the app that you now have to use to pay for your parking or whatever it is in life. Life is just so much more difficult in the 21st century, and I think that's one of the things that I was trying to explain to my oldest daughter, that if you think life's okay now, if you were alive during the 1980s, it was incomparable to the world in which we live in this day and age. We never had the terrorist threats then. I mean, okay, we had problems with the IRA, etc., but it was rare, it was unusual, everyone kind of knew where they stood. We didn't have thousands of fundamentalists living around the country in different towns and areas. We didn't have the problems that we have today when it comes to national security in general. And you can blame who you like for that. Personally, I think there's been far too much uncontrolled legal and illegal immigration of the wrong people, of the wrong type of people. Let's be honest, right? We need immigration in this country, and in many aspects, in many respects, it's been a good thing. But what we haven't done over the years, we haven't introduced a proper system where we pick and choose who we allow into our home. And I think that's a prerequisite for anyone with any brains, right? If you have a party in your house this coming weekend, for anyone out there now spitting feathers at me, calling me silly names through the screen, just listen to me for a minute. If you was going to have a party at your home this weekend, would you want to know the people that were coming? Would you want to vet who you're going to allow into your house, into your party, your home this coming weekend? Would you want it to be people who are friendly, people who are safe, people that are going to bring a bottle and not going to come along and steal things from your home? It's very simple. This country is our home. We only should really want people in it that are going to be a benefit to everyone, including themselves. We don't need to import anyone else's criminals or rapists or murderers. We've got enough of our own homegrown scumbags to want any more. We didn't have that problem during the 1980s, and we never had that problem until bloody Tony Blair got his hands on illegal wars and mass migration of unprecedented levels in the mid to late 1990s, I should say. An awful time, when the face of Britain changed forever, and not for the better either. And I think most people would agree with that. Back then, in the 1980s, and going back before to the 60s and the 70s, we used to sing a hymn at school in the morning before we started school. The schools were Church of England or Christian based. We all belonged, we were all in the same club, if you like. And it was a different way of life. We celebrated Christmas, we celebrated Easter. We celebrated being British. We were proud of our flag, not ashamed of it. Our kids, and certainly I was taught by my teachers to be proud of being British, to be English, and of our history, our culture, our heritage, the things that we've given to this world. I know that we've had a sketchy past when it comes to, going into other countries and taking everything worth having. I accept that. I've never shied away from that. But we can't change the past, right? We can't keep paying the price for what our forefathers did in previous times. And these people that point this stuff out, they always forget as well the things that we gave to the world. I mean, the British have given more than anyone to the entire planet. Education, law. If you look at all the major countries around the world that speak English, they all basically follow the rules and the guidelines that the English ourselves gave them or put their way back in the day. The United States, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the list goes on and on and on, really, when you look at how the British way of life has filtered through down the years. And it's been a good way of life, with the odd blip. But times have got so hard, things have got so difficult, Everything now is made to just make your life harder than it needs to be. Red tape, etc. And I'm not really into conspiracy theories myself. My son-in-law's into them quite big. There's a lot of things that he believes that I find, can I really go along with stuff like that? But you know what? I do think that we are slowly but surely becoming almost like robots. We're becoming a bit like North Korea, where the government wants to know this, wants to know that. Let me give you a couple of silly examples, right? Just recently, I've had a bank account for, 25 years with the same bank. And just recently, they wrote me a letter about compliance, whatever that means. Anyway, they rung me up, they asked me a load of questions, which included, why did I take a flight to America last year? And I said, well, I went on business. And they said, well, what sort of business did you go on? And I said, well, on business. You can see my bank account, you know what I do. That's what I was doing, I was on business. Who did you go and see? What was you there for? How long did you stay? This became like an interrogation from the CIA or the FBI or the MI5 rather than my bank, allegedly doing some kind of thing they called compliance. And some of the other things I wanted to know, where did I spend this? What did I buy this for? Why did I buy it? Very intrusive, which led me to make a complaint. And they called me back and said that, look, everyone is going through this compliance. We need to know every penny that you've got. We need to know how you spend it, where you spend it, etc., etc. Now, what goddamn business is that of the banks? But it's not really the banks that want to know all this stuff. It's the government. It's those above us. We're just the mere peasants. We don't really count. All they've got to do is keep us under their control and make sure that we keep giving them our money, right? That's the way that it appears to be right now. I mean, back in the 80s, you could pay for things with cash. You could get a mortgage. You could walk into a bank and open up a bank account and walk out with that bank account. The kids can't even get those bank accounts these days, let alone get a goddamn mortgage that sits alongside it. It's virtually impossible. And our young kids at school now, in infant school, junior school, etc., they're no longer taught to be proud of who they belong to, where they belong, what their lifestyle is all about, the beliefs that they should be believing in my humble opinion. And instead, their brains are rotted with all sorts of gender issues and racial issues and divisionary things that they shouldn't even really be thinking about. They should just be playing and getting along with other kids. But that's not good enough for the small minority of far left extremists that are somehow in this mad world seem to have been able to take over from everyone and get their way over the will of the majority. And it's not just here in the UK, is it? It's all over Europe. In fact, it's all over the world. Quite how we've got to that point and how they're clever enough to work their way into this situation of advantage really baffles me. I just don't get it. And as I've got older, I've felt myself becoming less happy, more frustrated, certainly less free, absolutely less free. In fact, I don't actually feel free or safe at all here in the UK anymore. Definitely don't feel safe, both from a physical viewpoint. I think it's a far more dangerous country now than it ever was when I grew up. There's no question of that, no doubt. But I think the more sinister side of it is that I feel more in danger from what I'm allowed to say and even what I'm allowed to think. We didn't have social media back then, of course, so you couldn't have put yourself in danger on a platform that didn't exist back in the 80s, right? But I know for sure, I know for 100% fact and a certainty that I would have been able to say far more back then than I can in today's world. And people who have watched my channel have said to me, Paul, you never say anything that's wrong or illegal or that could even be deemed illegal, but I guarantee that one day they're going to say something to you, you're going to find yourself having a problem, and I've no doubt they're right. You can't talk about certain things in the UK anymore without having the risk of a knock on the door for the police or the authorities to come along and check your thinking and make sure that it's in keeping with theirs and their beliefs and what we're told we can and cannot now think and believe in. How much longer will it be before flying a Union Jack or a St George's Cross outside your home will become illegal because it's going to offend someone? I don't think we're that far away. I hate to say this, and my daughter said to me, what do you think the future holds for my generation and more importantly for my grandkids? And this is where it gets really sticky. This is where it gets really upsetting and quite difficult. I do genuinely believe, although I hope against all hopes that I'm wrong, I sincerely hope and pray that I'm wrong, but I do see in years to come, probably not in my lifetime, but in years to come, mass, very serious civil disturbances. Not only here in the UK, but probably right across Europe, as the indigenous people are slowly taken over by a different ideology that is currently preaching or trying to make out that it preaches tolerance, when in fact it's actually the most intolerant platform that there is, or belief system that there is, when it comes to being tolerant against people that don't believe in it. I hope this all makes sense. When they're in charge, and they certainly will be, there's no doubt about that, the maths tell us that this is the case, then I think there's going to be serious issues. I don't think that Jewish people in this country have any future whatsoever. I think it's gone. I think if I was Jewish, I'd be looking to get out as soon as I possibly could. I don't think they have a future here anymore. I really don't. And I talk to a lot of Jewish people about this, and I'm not Jewish myself. I'm Church of England, so I've got no dog in either fight. It's just the way that it is. A lot of Jewish people now tell me they would like to leave. They no longer feel safe here in the UK because they're first, right? They're the first ones that will be on the end of all this. That's my belief. And then it will be us next. Then it will be anyone that is Christian after the Jews. And I fear mass civil disturbances in the future. Would I go as far as to say a civil war? Maybe not. I think that the UK will become almost like the old East and West Germany, if you like. There will be areas that are completely separate to other areas where, demographically at least, the face of the UK will change dramatically. So, you know, you might have areas in the north, I mean, we already have them to some degree, that aren't particularly very multiracial or very well integrated. But I think there's a lot more of that to come. As one community gets bigger and the other one gets smaller, there will be political takeovers. They will probably end up completely the majority in Parliament, and then we'll get different laws introduced, different ways of life. And the big fear is that then the extremists within that group will take over the moderates, and we'll end up living in a country something like Iran. I think the UK will probably, in less than 100 years, be more like Iran than we are today here in the UK. And a lot of people out there will laugh at that, but 100 years is quite a long time. When you look at what's taken place here over the last 20 or 30 years, well, times that by 3. Look at the birth rates and look at the way members of Parliament is going. Look at the way that, and the things that are happening in towns, especially in the north of England, up and down the country. Whew, wow, you know, I mean, all I can say is thank God I won't be around when that happens. But my children, my grandchildren at least, my great-grandchildren, you know, they will be, and so will yours. And it's very worrying. And this video is not about scaremongering. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm telling you what I believe. I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think I will be. I honestly don't. Not when you look at the way we've gone in a very short time in this country, and the way we've allowed ourselves to be taken over and dominated by a belief system that we seem to be very scared of. The government, the authorities, seems to be very frightened of this belief system, and is willing to bow down to it at every given opportunity. And I don't blame those people. They want Britain their way. And if they can achieve that, then that's down to their strength and our weakness. If we allow that to happen, that's not their fault, it's our fault. So, you know, I would certainly, and have been, thinking about in the past leaving this country, you know, for pastures new, you know, somewhere like Spain. But I decided to stay and do what I'm doing now, put the message out on YouTube and live the rest of my life here in the UK and try and make things better for my kids and my grandkids. Will I be able to achieve that? Let's be realistic. Of course not. My voice means less than nothing. You know, a few thousand people watch my videos. Whatever is that going to achieve? Zero. Because the people that we face have much stronger voices in better places. For instance, the mainstream media. What chance have you ever got of seeing me offering my opinion on mainstream media? Less than zero when it comes to the problems that I'm talking about today. Yes, I've appeared on mainstream media before when I've been talking about luxury watch crime, etc. But as soon as I reveal the true cause of luxury watch crime, I'm blacklisted. They don't want me anymore. I'm not giving the right message. I'm not feeding the narrative. So they're in a much better position, a much more powerful position than us, the ordinary peasants of this country, the ordinary people. They're in a much stronger position. And they have been now for a long time, and they will continue to do so, and fair play to them. They've worked their way into that position. We've been daft enough and weak enough to let it happen. So My advice to my daughter at the end of our conversation was, leave, move abroad. And it's going to absolutely break my heart to see my children and my grandchildren leave this country, the country that they were born in, the country that all their families and their forefathers were born in, that we love, cherish and have worked hard to pay into the systems. But we're no longer wanted, are we? We no longer really matter. You know, we're just the dirt on the bottom of the politician's shoe. Nobody really has any respect for the working class anymore. The only thing they ever want out of us is our taxes and our vote. And the rest of it, well, they don't give a shit, do they? Even our health system has absolutely collapsed. We've lost the police. They're now the enemy in most respects. They're not out there to serve us anymore, to look after us, to take care of us anymore. They're now there to make sure that we do as we're told and that we toe the line and that we're thinking the right things. When you add all this up, and I think it made sense to my daughter at the end of the day, this isn't the country that I grew up in. It's nowhere near, it's not recognisable to me and to the older generation, you know, like my wife's parents, etc. They no longer recognise this country anymore. Everything they were brought up to believe in is gone, it's finished, it's over. And we now have a new culture, almost a new language in many respects. And it's very sad, it's very sad. It's almost like, you know, we're being deliberately wiped out. Even the old London accent that you would hear young men growing up with has gone, it's changed. You know, there is no such thing as the old-fashioned Cockney London accent anymore, is it? It's gone. And look, I know there are people out there that will say, oh, you know, what's he talking about? You know, accents and all that, what does that matter? Well, I think heritage and your background and your history matters to everyone, and it's all right for everyone else to want to continue and carry on with their backgrounds and their cultures, except for us. And that's where it's all gone wrong. That is where it's all gone wrong. And that's why my advice to my kids and their grandchildren is to get out while they can afford to, before the government comes along one day and says, we need to take pretty much everything you've got to pay for this, that or the other. And let's be honest, we're paying for, what is it, £15 million a day right now to pay for people that have come here to break the law with the sole purpose of breaking the law before they even hit the deck. Their intention is to break our laws. We're paying for those people. What chance have the youngsters got? What chance have they got? I say it's none, slim to none. So my advice is to go, move abroad and find somewhere else to call home, find another culture, adapt to it, pay it respects. Don't do to someone else's country what a lot of people have done to ours. Go there and expect them to fall into our way of life. We need to integrate into their society, learn their language and pay our taxes and do our best for the country that we move to. But I just find it very sad. If only we were back in the 1980s, if only we were back in the 1980s when we were free, when only fools and horses didn't have a warning before it was played. That's where we're at. Right, sorry for the waffle today, but let me know what you think.